friends! Today we will be reading about King David, but before he was king, and this will come out of 1 Samuel 16 and 17. So, as we learned in previous videos, Saul was king, and Saul was king because the Israelites really wanted a human king, someone they could see and touch, not like because the Lord was their king, but they wanted like a real king. And so they got Saul, right? But Saul messed up. Saul was not a good king to them, and he disobeyed God. And so God said, I don't want him to be king anymore. I have rejected him, you know? And then so Samuel, the priest at the time, said, okay. And then he trusted God, and so he went to go find a new king. And so Samuel came to the house of Jesse, and Jesse had 8 sons. And they were all differing ages, and so Samuel went, and he said, oh, surely the oldest son must be fit to be a king, because he was strong, he was tall, muscular, but God said, no, that is not it. And so Samuel went and saw a lot of the different sons, all the older sons, and thought, well, one of these has to be king, and they weren't. And he said, the Lord has not chosen these of all those sons. And then Samuel asked Jesse, are all your sons here? And then Jesse said, well, no, they're still my youngest son if you would, like to see him, but he's out with the sheep, he's a shepherd, not really, But then, so Samuel went and looked at him, and the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. So in that moment, David got chosen to be the next king, and he was anointed. And then so Samuel anointed him, and he was next in line to be king. Since God had abandoned Saul, he rejected him as the king. He became very troubled in his spirit. He just didn't feel good. He felt very bad all the time. But it was because God was like, hey, you're not supposed to be king anymore. So Saul wanted some soothing, and then so he told his people, he said, I need someone who can help soothe me. And they said, oh, Jesse's son David, he can play the harp, he is great. You should definitely consider him to be the person to soothe you. So then David got to come with Saul and help soothe his spirit while he remained on the throne still. And so Saul told Jesse, let David remain in my service, for he has found favor in my sight. So that was kind of a cool thing too. So, David was there with Saul a lot of the time, but then again with the Philistines, there's a war, there's a battle going on. And the Philistines, they had a great warrior named Goliath. And Goliath told the Israelites, send me your best man, and we'll fight 1-to-1 to see who would win. It was kind of like a challenge. It was a challenge. And let me tell you, Goliath was no small guy. The Philistines, the Bible talks about that certain type of person that Goliath was, they just got really tall. They were giants. They were really big. And so, think of the tallest person and they were just really tall. So that can be kind of scary, But all the Israelites were scared, so no one wanted to go fight Goliath. And then so that was going on for a while. Goliath would come out and be like, send your best men, but no one would come. And then so one day, Jesse told David, hey, bring your brothers some food. Because a couple of David's brothers, they weren't anointed king, but they were still Israelites, so they were out fighting. And David wasn't fighting because he was, he was under the king's service, and he was very young. So David went to go take food to the battlefield. And then David saw Goliath, and then he saw the Israelites were afraid. And then David trusted God, and he said, I'll fight him. And David had actually fought off some lions and bears from his sheep, so he knew that he could do it, with God's help. And then so David was small, Goliath was super tall, so it was just like, how is this going to work? But then David actually brought his slingshot. So David went, and he found 5 smooth stones from a nearby stream. Kind of, I imagine them that they would kind of be like this, just 5 smooth stones. And he went up to Goliath only armed with his slingshot and his stones. And then David ran towards Goliath, and he slung a rock, and the first one he threw, it flew and it hit Goliath right in the center of his forehead, and he died. And so that was great for the Israelites because they had won the battle. And David had done that through God. So this lesson is a good reminder that with God, like, everything is possible. And also just to show that David wasn't this big strong guy that, like, you would look at him and think, oh, he should be our next king. He wasn't that at all. And that lines up very nicely with when Jesus came to us. Jesus wasn't this guy who, like, he should be a king. He was very lowly and meek, and, like, you wouldn't look at him and think, oh, that's a really cool guy. He was just a normal guy. So that's just a good, it brings it all together to remind us that, you know, it doesn't matter, like, it didn't matter how Jesus looked. He is our Savior. So, thank you. Have a good week.